Hi, we are back with another episode of Mix and Matchbox. I'm your host, Brent Feldman, and today we are joined by Adam Nathan. He is the CEO at Blaze. So we're looking forward to chatting with him about AI today. So, hi, Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Brent. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. I'll start out with a pretty straightforward question here. It seems like you had a very interesting background, but from nonprofit to agencies to startups, how did you make your way to Blaze?
Yeah, it's a great question. It wasn't necessarily a straightforward path or an intentional one at that. I graduated from undergrad at Duke and from business school at Harvard, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I grew up in New York City. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather ran an insurance company. My brother also runs a startup today, and we had parents who owned a small business together. They worked together every day in the outerwear business, and so grew up watching them successfully grow their company across the United States, opening stores in Texas and Arizona and Colorado, and also watched them struggle trying to make the leap to the internet and sell their products on the internet. They still to this day don't have a website. They don't communicate with their customers via email. They know I'm probably saying this on a podcast, but we would sit around the dinner table when I would go home, my brother and I, and kind of exhort my parents for not putting up Instagram ads or not having a newsletter. And for us, it was so easy because it's what we've done from our careers. My background before Blaze was working in product management at companies like Apple and Lyft, and so I spend my days on the internet. Obviously, I'm a digital native, quote unquote. And so for me, setting up a website on Squarespace or setting up a listserv on MailChimp are things I could do in my sleep. But for a lot of people like my parents, it's actually not very easy to do that. And I think their experience belies a truth, which is that while it's never been easier to start a business in America, business starts are up over 300% since the pandemic. It's also never been harder to grow a business. And when we have lots of tools to help us get on the internet, those tools don't actually tell you what is good content or what is a good website or what is a good email. And it was impossible for you to know that unless you're a professional marketer before, who likely was living in San Francisco or New York. But with AI, we now have the ability to give everybody the ability to market really, really well to their customers and grow awareness and increase conversions and raise revenue, even if you don't have the time or skills. And so, long answer, but the short of it is really that with AI, I saw an opportunity to help people like my parents, and I think really level the playing field for all the small businesses out there. And ultimately, I evaluate my life through the impact I make on other people. And I think what we're doing at Blaze gives me and our team the opportunity to help, at this point, hundreds of thousands of people every single day grow faster on the internet.
That's awesome. Really democratizing, I guess. Yeah, the ability to market yourself. All right. I have to ask, and even though I can probably anticipate the answer of it, are your parents utilizing the tool?
They're actually not yet, and it's very upsetting to me. But it's a quest to get them on the tool. There's certainly lots of people like my parents who are using it, and so I take some small comfort in that we have hundreds of thousands of users who are benefiting from the tool. But it is my mission to get my parents on the platform. So hopefully this year in 2025 will be the year that they finally make the jump and create some social content for their business that they can post via Blaze.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't worry. Parents in the same regard, digital stalwarts. They're not moving that direction very quick at all. And you know what? I similarly probably have the same mission. You just move them forward little by little, but that's awesome. It's funny if that becomes your last holdout. Don't worry, I'm sure there's a huge other market for you to get to. Yeah. So it definitely looks like you have some experience working in different parts of the world. How has this had an impact on how you see work culture and what you do?
Well, yeah, I've definitely worked in different countries. I worked in the government during the Obama administration. I worked in nonprofits as well, all different types of businesses. I think, as I just mentioned, my life goal is to make an impact on other people. It's how I evaluate whether or not I've been using my time successfully. And I started my career in the nonprofit space, really. But what I learned there is that the best way to help people is to help them make more money, to help them help themselves. If I did a lot of work in education, and what I learned there is that if you want to improve schools, which of course are a way to help intergenerational kids get out of poverty, the best way to do that is to actually help their parents make more money. If their parents making more money, their district has more tax dollars, which can go to pay teachers more. Parents often who have better jobs have more time to spend on their kids. They're not just working from shift to shift. So in the end, unfortunately, a lot of it comes down to the economy and how many people are able to participate and take advantage of the opportunities in it. So even on social issues, I realized personally that my impact can be best made through a business. And then the great thing about a business as well is that you can be really focused on delivering a certain kind of impact to people without kind of the compromises and consensus required in policymaking and government. With something like Blaze, what we're doing with Blaze is kind of unintuitive or contrarian. A lot of people think small businesses are bad businesses. They think that if you're small, it's because you suck. It's because you don't know what you're doing, or you picked the wrong market, or you're unlucky, you're bad at execution. We believe that small businesses are great businesses, and often small businesses don't want to be Amazon or Apple or Google. They just want to be the very best version of themselves. And when I talk to our customers, which I do every day, the thing I hear the most is pride in what they built. They've taken a bet on themselves, and by the fact that they're talking to me, they've often succeeded to some degree, but they're not yet by their own admission at their potential. And so what we're trying to do is help people who have taken a bet on themselves take control over their futures, make the most of the opportunity that they've envisioned for their business and for their life and for their family. And I think that's the best way that we can help, hopefully millions of people this year do better for themselves and for their communities and hopefully for our country.
That's cool. It's great aspiration. You mentioned, your work in government, and I feel like it's really interesting. I saw that, you even had the opportunity to work on Dodd-Frank, the regulatory reform legislation. And so obviously, in the coming, time period here, we may be looking forward to a different approach in maybe the White House as it comes to regulation. And you work in a field that some say it desperately needs more of. How do you view, as a person working actively in the field of AI, how do you view regulation when it comes to
AI? It's a great question. I think a lot of people who are out there creating fear around AI are generally people who don't know what they're talking about. So I tell everybody that, anyone who you hear, especially on the news, who is talking confidently about the risks of AI or safety, I'd say probably 90% of them don't know what they are talking about. 10% maybe do. Of course, I don't know what the future holds with the development of where AI is going, but with the code we have today, you'd be surprised at how primitive it is, how difficult it is to manipulate, how variable the outcomes are. It's not at all like, an evil genius ready to take over the world. So safety fears aside, of course, there's still risks to any new technology. I think more mundane risks than AI taking over our world, more things that are just safeguards we have to put up around responsible use. I think a mistake sometimes regulators have made in technology is to regulate inputs rather than outputs or use cases. A good example of this is with privacy. Every time now you go onto a website, you might see the GDPR notification around accepting or rejecting cookies. That's I think a bad example, or an example of regulating inputs. By saying that we don't want anyone to collect any data, we could be cutting off the data that we need to solve really important problems like cancer or climate change. I think it's important to kind of experiment, therefore, with technology, see where it goes. And then as soon as we find a risk or see a problem, then regulate that use case, regulate that output, make sure that we put up guardrails around it. We should be aggressive about mitigating the downsides of AI, just like we should have been, I think, with social media. I don't think that unregulated technologies are a good thing. We should regulate everything we do as humans, as in our economy, to maximize the good and minimize the bad. But I think it'd be a mistake to regulate the input. So regulate the use or development of the technology before we know what really it can do.
Yeah, definitely. And especially let fear drive some of that, potential regulation where it may curtail the eventual good or benefit, especially if it's, regulated heavily or too heavily so that it does that. So that's super. That's interesting. And by the way, I always find it fascinating. People who are within the field, it's like, just as, Sam Altman, like wants, theoretically regulation to a degree. And obviously, I feel like, yeah, some of it's healthy, some of it's beneficial, and we should be asking for that. But being smart and sensible about it is always, it's tough, it's difficult to navigate, sure, but always, definitely important to consider. But now more little bit, towards Blaze. Where do you see individuals struggling with content, and what was the market gap that really you saw that brought Blaze kind of into existence?
Yeah, well, I think most business owners out there or entrepreneurs know that in order to grow on the internet, you need to do great marketing. And by great marketing, I mean you need to be talking consistently about what you do, who you're for, what makes your products and services better. You need to be talking in a compelling way, meaning you need to create content that people engage with and click on and comment on and come back to. And creating compelling content consistently is really hard. It's a full-time job. In fact, many big companies have hundreds of people who do that every single day as their only task. And for a lot of small businesses or teams of one, the challenge is they neither have the time to create marketing like that. They're wearing 10 hats, they're paying bills, they're talking to customers, they're developing new ideas. They don't have time to spend all day, like saying the same thing over and over on 10 different channels. And they also don't have the skills. They're not professional marketers by trade. They're really good at what they do. They could be great therapists or fitness trainers or financial advisors or real estate agents or store owners, but they're not marketers. They didn't go to school for it. They haven't done it professionally. And so they don't know what they're doing. And so that combination of lack of time and lack of skills and often lack of resources is really toxic when it comes to creating good outcomes. It means businesses aren't investing the right ways to create great content and great marketing, even though they know they should. And so that's why I think a lot of small businesses, even if they have a great product, a great business, a great idea, aren't growing as fast as they should on the internet because they just don't have the time or skills. And of course, that was an unsolvable problem before. You don't have more than 24 hours in a day. You can't, magically gain the skills of a professional marketer overnight. But with AI, all that changed, because what a tool like Blaze can do is basically put a virtual marketer on your team. And today, when people compare Blaze to other things, they don't compare it even to ChatGPT or Canva. Our customers compare Blaze to hiring another person or bringing on an agency or spending the time, nights and weekends to learn how to do these things themselves. So they're comparing Blaze to a person, not to a tool. And Blaze is kind of like a virtual marketer who brings all of the very best practices from across the whole internet, across the whole world to your fingertips, and is able to create content for you, in a matter of minutes that can be scheduled and posted automatically over weeks and months without you having to do anything. That kind of generates more leads, more customers, more revenue without any work for you. And when you calculate the kind of difference between Blaze and bringing on another person, for example, Blaze costs $35 a month. And so it not just produces better content way faster, but it does it for cents on the dollar. And so Blaze is not just like 10x better than hiring a person or doing it yourself. It's like 10,000x better. If you were to calculate the cost per lead you get from leads generated by SEO articles written by Blaze or by social media content generated and posted by Blaze, it's cents on the dollar over the alternatives that small businesses have. And so it's really like a generational night and day opportunity for small businesses who are jumping on this early to see that they can now grow way faster than they thought they could with fewer resources than they're probably spending today. Cool.
That's awesome. I'm just curious though. I've seeing the platform, seeing the forward-facing website. What was the superhero theme sparked by? Your love of comics, maybe, or just something else? Because it definitely it's permeated the entire sort of outward appearance of it.
Yeah, I do love comics, but that's not why the brand is what it is. If it isn't obvious by now, we're for small businesses. We're for the regular guy or or girl out there. We're a product for consumers by consumers. It's not designed by engineers for engineers. We're trying to design it for regular people who want to get ahead. So the brand itself leans into pop culture. The key idea is that you can be the hero of your own story, and a tool like AI gives you superpowers. And what we're trying to do is sample from other moments in the past in like a retro-futuristic way, where technology was changing society really quickly. So the comics harken back to the 1950s and the post-World War II economic boom, when there were all sorts of new technologies that changed culture. A lot of our newer brand stuff is more from the 80s, where kind of the Cold War, free market driven capitalism was changing people's sense of individuality and what they could do. It was the rise of celebrity culture, as you know. And so we now sample not just from comics, but from pop stars and sports stars and muscle cars, and these icons that people idolize, whether from different areas of pop culture. And what we're trying to communicate is that you can be just like them. The only thing that separates the people that are on a magazine cover or on a TV show or in a movie from you is that they took a bet on themselves and they gained the skills they needed to make it happen. And Blaze can be that helper. But we're trying to sample, I think, from a lot of those cultural tomes that implicitly share that message, whether or not you realize they're doing so. And of course, our brand resonates so much with people because they get it, and it stops people when they're scrolling on Instagram. They smile, they laugh, and we think that even though what Blaze is represents a big idea, it doesn't have to be so serious. It can be fun. You can laugh. We can enjoy ourselves while we're working, and I think the brand successfully gets that across. When we talk to customers today, they stay because of the product, but they often come because of the brand, because when they see our marketing, they're like, oh, that's sick. Like, I want to check that out. That looks like a different product that's for me. And I think great brands are ones that people identify with and have an emotional attachment with. And what we're trying to do over time with Blaze is not just build a good product that's transformational to people's businesses. I think we're doing that, but also build a brand that people identify with, kind of like Starbucks or Apple or Nike, where Nike makes great shoes, but that's probably not why you buy Nike shoes. It's because of what Nike says about you. And we think there's an opportunity to build really the first great AI native brand, and that's our goal.
That's great. Awesome. As far as the technology is concerned, you did touch on ChatGPT actually really briefly. And, as ChatGPT and other tools can take on brand voice and do some of the things within Blaze, how does Blaze itself or tools, differentiate in terms of either its focus, its simplicity? I know you mentioned that it was kind of like hiring, a whole marketing person altogether, or maybe even marketing team. But yeah, what is that thing that you feel like really sets it apart from utilizing other AI tools in order to achieve the same results?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. I described Blaze before as a virtual marketer, like our customers have been telling us. But what we think about Blaze as a full cycle marketing platform. So yeah, ChatGPT, as the name implies, is a chat interface. Yeah, it'll learn how you speak now, and maybe think about draw from past prompts you've given it. But it's really a generic tool. It's for finding restaurant recommendations or doing math homework or whatever you need it to do. Blaze, though, is able to help you get from start to finish on everything you need to do your marketing. And so that process typically looks like, for a lot of companies, first trying to figure out what to do. And so brainstorming ideas on what to write, what channels to be in, what topics to talk about based on your products and your customers and your advantages. Then, of course, generating a lot of content, then actually editing it, not just seeing it, but being able to, with your team, tweak it, make sure that it's really great, put your human touch on it, then actually get it out into the world, post it, put it on a calendar, schedule it, and then analyze it. And what turns it from a process into a cycle is the ability to look at the content you posted, figure out what was working, and then generate more like it. And so Blaze does all 5 of those steps. I think ChatGPT, of course, generates content, but it doesn't help you really strategically think about where you should be posting. It's not a document editor or a visual studio like Blaze is, where you can actually edit it on your own. Blaze is also a CMS where you can schedule and post and manage your content, and it shows all the analytics. And the best thing about Blaze is that it actually does those 5 steps for you automatically. So we have multi-step complex actions where you can ask Blaze to, for example, schedule a whole month of content on Instagram. And all we need is one line of text from you on what you want, like, hey, I want a holiday promotion for Black Friday. And we will write the captions, pick the designs, pick photos to match those designs, schedule them, post them, analyze them, all without you having to do anything. You can take this podcast, for example, and say, hey, I want a multi-channel campaign that talks about my podcast with Adam on Twitter, Instagram. I want a newsletter, I want a landing page, and Blaze will generate those, build them for you, post them for you, all without you having to do anything. And so that's this kind of idea of not just a tool that automates certain steps or makes things faster, but actually does the work for you. And I think that's what separates Blaze from ChatGPT is A, it's a purpose-built tool for helping you grow faster via marketing, and B, we really invested in the things you need to be great at in order to actually generate more revenue over time.
Excellent. Awesome. So between, maybe being an idea catalyst and a pure writing assistant, AI can definitely fill, many roles. Are there things that you think that humans should still be doing to make sure that the landscape of articles or content doesn't become too robotic? It might be a dangerous question here, but I mean, really where does that balance lie?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea that we're going to be confronting just a hellscape of monotonous content on our feeds is overstated. In the same way, you mentioned access before. Most technologies democratize access, increase access to a good. If you think about food, for example, the industrialization of our food supply chain made granted a lot more access to more safe, healthy food than we ever had before as a society. You can go to a grocery store now and find vegetables from around the world any season you want. And so, of course, I think that's pushed kind of the amount of food we can access, the quality of it up. But it doesn't now mean that we all eat the same food every single day. In fact, I think the value of artisanal food, of curated food, of high-end food has only increased. There's an explosion of recipe apps and cookbooks, and people travel to Michelin-starred restaurants, and there's TV shows about celebrity chefs. The value of the human touch on food has increased, even though the availability of processed foods has also increased. And so I think the same thing will happen with content, where more people will be able to produce better content than before. But if you really invest in not just leveraging the automation and the industrialization you'll get from tools like Blaze, but then putting your distinct touch on it, you'll go even further. And so I think there'll still be, even though there's more access to better content, there will still be a diversity of outcomes, because some people will really focus on taking advantage of the tools that we now have, and some people will totally ignore them. And so we won't, I think, live in some kind of socialist world where everybody's doing the same thing. No one has an ability to stand up, but actually the opposite, where because we have more powerful tools than ever, it will create even a bigger divergence in outcomes. The small businesses out there that are taking advantage of tools like Blaze will grow even faster than they did before. And the small businesses that are totally ignoring AI will grow even slower. And so I think it will be the opposite of what people think will happen, where in the end, better content that's a combination of humans and AI will be even more valuable than just really good human content is today.
Yeah, that's interesting. And especially the analogy with food, only because let's say that even the sous vide was a device that, very few people used. It started getting, popular. More people had access to it. People started doing interesting things with it. And so, it's just equipping people with the tools, and then you can see what humans do with that, so. Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. Cool. So I guess if you had advice for content writers that are still doing things, quote unquote, the old fashioned way, let's say your parents, no, is there one thing that you could recommend putting in their workflow to move them in a different or better direction?
I mean, I think a lot of people aren't using AI. It's still early days. There's hundreds of millions of small businesses out there. And I think we're just still, penetration wise, probably less than 1% of the market, not just Blaze, but any tool out there. So there's a long way to go to really bring AI to help small businesses. So if you are a small business that's taking advantage of AI right now, you are in the top 1%. And so my advice is just to get started and start playing with a tool like Blaze. we spend time every day looking at the output of our customers, what they're doing in the tool, and it's really amazing to see how much better their content is compared to what was going on their Instagram or their Facebook or their LinkedIn page before. I'd say just start experimenting. Build trust with the tool. Make sure that it is producing high quality content, or learn how to make it produce content that you really like. And then, I think building proficiency is the first step for people who are going from 0 to 1. A lot of our customers, by the way, it's not like for small businesses, many of them, as I mentioned, are like really, really great at social media or SEO. A lot of them are doing nothing. And then another, I'd say third, are kind of doing a little bit, but it's not working. It's like they're going to the gym and lifting 5-pound dumbbells and leaving and getting upset with the outcome. So most people out there are kind of spinning their wheels or doing nothing. And so just doing anything, I think, is better than nothing. And then, of course, I think everyone will be surprised with how good it is. And then once you get going, I think then learning how to make it really efficient. In Blaze, as I mentioned, we have tools where you can plan an entire month, an entire quarter, even a year if you want, worth of your content. We have customers who come and create content for the quarter, set it and forget it, come back the next quarter. And so then figuring out ways to automate your processes once you build trust in the quality can save you, thousands and thousands of hours every year. And you can then use the time to do other important things to your business. So TLDR is just get going and you'd be, way ahead of the curve.
That's great. Yeah. Just try it out. You may be surprised. Cool. Well, this is kind of on a little bit different track, but it seems like you've had a lot of startup experience, and I assume this can't be the last venture for you. I'm sure that, as it seems like you've had some other experiences, that you may develop something else. Do you have any other tools or ideas or things that you feel like are still yet to be developed that you'd like to go after?
To be honest, I'm just very focused on what we're doing at Blaze. It's people ask me this all the time, and my focus is on delivering a product that our customers love and want and need, and that is overwhelming. Ask of myself and the team, and so I spend less time thinking about like where is the world going or what else can I be doing, and really all my time thinking about like how do I help our customers grow faster on the internet. I know if I do that well, this may not be the last thing I do, but it will be something I do for a very long time, because we know our market is huge. Canva, which is an amazing business, 20 years ahead of us, has 200 million paying active users every month. I think we just crossed our 10,000th paying workspace, and so we have a long way to go. But Canva is one of the top 5 biggest platforms in the world, and the great thing about building a tool that helps people be more productive, more creative, is that there's always more to do. Video is a huge area of our focus this year, and we're not just dealing with a static ball. The ball is moving all the time with AI. There's always new things that people are inventing, and so I expect I'll have my hands busy in this if I'm good at listening to customers for the foreseeable future. And I think a lot of companies out there don't actually listen to their customers. They don't actually like their customers, and we at Blaze really do like the people we serve. And so I'd be very happy to do this for a very long time. I have small side ideas, like I'd love to start a bar, things that have nothing to do with tech or delivering impact at scale. But as I mentioned, it's a 24/7 job to do what we're doing here, and I feel very grateful that I get to do it every day.
That's awesome. All right. Well, last one is back to your nonprofit work. This is very different from what you do now. And is there anything calling you back to maybe the nonprofit space too, to stay engaged in those nonprofit endeavors? And you had some really fantastic and interesting experiences. I definitely know you just said you're like, hey, I'm fully invested here. You have plenty on your plate. And, maybe at another point in time in a different life, you'd be starting a bar or something. But yeah, anything in the nonprofit space too.
Yeah, well, I in my spare time, such that it is, I chair the board of the Salvation Army here in San Francisco. We're the largest provider of addiction treatment in the city and recovery services. And as anyone who reads the news knows, we have a huge homelessness and drug crisis in San Francisco. And so that gives me the opportunity to help make an impact where I live. And I think we've saved lives already through the work we've done, and we're adding 1,000 new beds across the next 5 years in the city to our recovery system of care. So that's definitely something I'm already involved in, and I think Yeah, you mentioned there's political transition happening right now. I think there's still lots of really big problems in America that no one has solved. Our education system, our healthcare system. I think we need new ways of figuring out how to take care of each other, and I think that's a big unsolved problem that someone should focus on. And I don't think we really cracked the code. If anything, people are very angry, obviously, at our inability to make life affordable and high quality for most people. And I think business is a big role to play there, supported by government. And I hope someone can take the same level of ambition that Elon has applied to going to space and helping accelerate the climate transition to some of these other big social problems that we face in education and healthcare.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I must say, Adam, this has been a fascinating, fun conversation. We're now apparently reaching the time of day where the sun is directly at me in the window here. But I will say that this has been great. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Well, this has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox. I'm your host, Brent Feldman. We will be back soon with more content. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.